Good afternoon. Good evening to everyone.
Saludo aquí desde Ginebra, un
I greet you from
agradecimiento
Geneva. I wish to thank the organizers, GCEF and INAES, for the ILO invitation. I would have loved to have been in Mexico. This is a fantastic country that I visited on different occasions, but the circumstances did not allow me to travel. This session on individual initiatives is a space to reflect on, from, and on social economy and solidarity economy, SSC. The participants will be sharing strategies from their own spheres and will convey ideas to face the crises. So one of the worst crises of the recent history of human beings has been this. ILO estimates that in 2020, we lost in labor hours
completo.
I think he said
Los
75
problemas que
million
existían antes,
employments. The problems that existed before continue, but even worse so. I'm referring to inequality, precarious employment, and environmental pollution. It's important to promote the SSC for a recovery guided by policies focusing on people and the planet. Two quick examples with regards to this year. The administration board of the ILO has decided to place in the agenda of the day concerning the Labor Day that will be organized in Geneva next June is an item on SSE for the future of employment, focusing on human beings. And this will be a general discussion. And also this year, we will carry out the 12th edition of Academia of ILO on social economy and solidarity in Portugal. Although it'll be a remote
reconstruir
event,
mejor el papel de la
it
economía
will
social y
be
solidaria
addressing
en una
to
recuperación.
rebuild SSC, focusing on human beings and sensitive to the planet. On the chat, I will place the link if some of you are interested in obtaining further information. I will now introduce the panel members of this session. The organization of this meeting is basically 2 rounds plus time for conclusions and also time for a Q&A session. The speakers for today are Blanca Poitsaitse. She has a degree in business administration from the University of Houston, specialized in marketing
from
the public university from that city and business development by the University of Umeå in Sweden. She has accumulated experience with projects and as a professor. At present, she is in charge of innovation and growth of the Reais Escadi. It's a network on social economy of the Basque Country. She focuses on strengthening entrepreneurial matters. And thereafter, we have Julian Cucupipila. He is a manager, consultant from the Quichua peoples in Peru. He has studied at Flaxo in Ecuador. He is a specialist on human development, gender, and he is a coordinator and technician on projects for community strengthening. After him, Mariana Espinosa Navas. She's an advisor from the municipality of Salcedo. He has a degree on physical therapy, chair of gender principles, member of tax and audit matters. She worked in the Ministry of Social Inclusion. She has worked with people that suffer from disabilities and on gender equality. At present, she is drafting the promotion and the strengthening of popular and solidarity economy matters. Thereafter, Caterina Ileana Fernandez Paz, she has a degree in social communication from the Mayor University of San Andres and a master's degree in rural development at the FIDES, founder of a platform for the marketing in short circuits of food from rural areas and small entrepreneurs. She works in alliances for the implementation of solar kitchens. She is the founder of the Polinizar network of agrotourist communities, and she's a member of the Bolivian platform facing climate change. And finally, Mr. Bernard Luiga, social economy for South Africa from the Kampala University, elect member of Kampala, member of the board of Makerere, chair of the Sala Lumumba of the university, representative of students from the School of Social Sciences from that same university. In other words, here they are. They will be introducing themselves as well. And I will now give the floor to them. But let me, first of all, ask a few questions. These are the questions that we wish to ask you, and you will have more or less 7 minutes to talk about. Julian and Mariana are sharing these 7 minutes. The questions are the following.
Economía social y solidaria deberían cambiar. Esta es la primera pregunta. La segunda pregunta es, ¿cuál es el beneficio tangible y real de la red de investigación e intercooperación
of research networks and intercooperation in the sector of social economy?
Espero haber sido suficientemente claro.
I was clear. I now give the floor for 7 minutes following the list that I have in front of me. Blanca will be following.
Muchas gracias por venir hoy aquí.
Thank you so much for being here. My intervention will focus on the alliance we have developed with the City Council of Bilbao and the SSE of Euskadi, which is translated in a project which is called Econopolo, which the social economy, pole, and solidarity. To be able to make visible this alliance, it's been a long process where we have had to take many steps, of course, and many proposals, of course, that have been carried out and have had to be redone. And of course, they have been developed with a very sound relationship between the agents that have participated and local government, carrying out a mutual job, a powerful one, to identify the needs that we had in common, and of course, to be able to convey an answer. Merely to provide you with a context, I will inform you the current situation in Euskadi concerning the SSE. In Euskadi, the SSE has a large trajectory, and there is a network which is called the Euskadi network that represents SSE that has a trajectory of 24 years. In the Euskadi networks at present, we are 89 entities belonging to this sector with over 17 economic sectors, and this is translated into 3,400 jobs, a social foundation of over 27,000 people between associates, volunteers, voluntary individuals and workers, and an invoicing of 3 billion euros. And specifically in Bilbao, where we have developed this alliance, SSC is quite consolidated because over 50% of the entities of this network are found in the surroundings of the city. Now, the numbers that I have conveyed are quite significant, but it's still a relatively small sector which has great potential for growth. So therefore, to try for SSC to go beyond the same groups and for it to be a real alternative for the whole of society, well, this is why we're developing these types of alliances. The alliance with the City Council of the city of Bilbao is based especially on one objective of the City of Council is to create, attract employment and economic activities. These objectives we can prioritize for strategic sectors: eco-technology and urban solutions, the sector of advanced services, that of art, technology and design, and tourism, health and life quality. And these 4 sectors that have been a priority from the City Council, we add the strategic sector of SSC, which is not a vertical line, but it's a cross-cutting one because it goes beyond one sector and it focuses on the way of doing economy, focusing on how rather than the what. And the Econopolo is the main tool so as to be able to develop these lines. It's also important to underscore that all this project, beyond being a strategy, it's been formalized, including it within the mandate plan of the City Council of Bilbao, taking into account the Econopolo project, a public policy with the SSC as an option for the economic and entrepreneurial development in Bilbao, as well as in the surrounding territory. And it's also important to underscore that it's built in collaboration. We've done it between the administration, the universities, enterprises, and the community. And all of this has been finished in a collaboration agreement between Euskadi and the City Council of Bilbao. And in closing, I wish to let you know what is the value proposal of the Econopolo, which is based on 3 main ideas. The first idea of this Econopolo is that we wish to offer another way of being an enterprise and of doing economy which goes beyond one single sector. It has to be applicable to different types of applications in the complete value chain. In other words, this is the first idea. The second idea, which is also very important, is that we wish to be a social intervention tool for social and solidarity economy. Social intervention is key. It wishes to do away with inequality, and therefore, from the Econopolo, we wish to promote inclusive employment models and to focus on the most vulnerable collective groups. And lastly, the third idea, which is collected at the Econopolo, it wishes to convey service to the community. Econopolo was built from the community and for the community. We have seen the participation of all the agents in the suburb where it's found, and they will be influenced by the project. And also, within this community, we wish to promote different ways of carrying out an economy which should be monetary, for example, employment, banks, exchange banks, or, for example, the model that we saw yesterday, the Quilur, which is also part of Econopolo. Therefore, to try and summarize what is the Econopolo project, the Econopolo wishes to be a reference space from a physical standpoint and symbolic standpoint of SSE, where the agents can gather, can share, and can move ahead joint projects, and also, in turn, be a loudspeaker for SSE. Thank you. Thank you, Blanca, for your words. And now I wish to give the floor to Julian and Mariana. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I am so happy to be here in the Social and Solidarity Economy Forum. Our proposal parts from public policy, national policy in our country, and it's going to show how we transfer it to the local level. So we'll be speaking about the timeline, how we can actually move forward the policy, public policy in social and solidarity economy. So this is the economic system of the country is a social and solidarity system. In 2011, there was an organic law that was approved that defines the law as the way of organizing economy, community, cooperatives, popular units based on solidarity, reciprocity, privileging human beings and are geared to living in union. As of the creation of the Constitution, there's a public process that directs the relationship between private sector and the state, and ultimately that includes the actors of the popular and solidarity economy. And those are called inclusive fairs and also inclusive catalogs. We're going to focus on the first one. What are the inclusive fairs? There's our hiring mechanisms of the state, benefiting, work, cleaning, services, building services, among others, where we see the participation of cooperatives, associations, craftsmen, individuals, micro and small producers. These mechanisms have no limits regarding hiring prices. We could see $100, $1,000, $1,000,000 processes. And the main criteria are individuals that are organized, participation of females, elderly, people with disabilities, and the products are those of quality. So I'll be tackling question number 2. What are the benefits therein? Well, for that purpose, we have generated a previous investigation, which is composed of 4 provinces. And here we see 1.5 million people engaged with 2,230 economic activities we have in the country at 1,850 ever since 2012 until now. Until June 2021, we have generated 15,500 purchasing activities, showing a movement of more than $36 million. The total is $557 million. May I mention that when we began the proceedings, we included small and medium enterprises as they and many members of social and solidarity economies have incorporated themselves. During the pandemic, they had more participation of these stakeholders as opposed to those that were not associated. So we were able to see them in different platforms for public purchases and within the National Economy Institute. So here we can see that there is a process of investigation as supporting a municipality, a local municipality. And that way we're going to be able to draft a document that's going to shed some light on local reality. And my colleague, she's going to be explaining exactly what we're doing. Thank you, Julian. Mariana is going to do it. Thank you. Kind regards from Ecuador, Salcedo Canton, the world capital of ice cream. We would have loved to be there in person, but however, we have to do it virtually. We're very excited that in such a small region can be part of this global forum. So as we have heard regarding the possible solutions to the problems that the country is experiencing. And to be more precise, our small region, which is the Salcedo region or canton. So we think that while we were preparing for this forum, we were able to see that some problems derive from different alliances that are there between the state and between the social and solidarity economy. And I like to underscore 2 main problems. The first one would be the lack of knowledge. So entrepreneurs can go ahead and become partners and organize themselves. In that way, they can be stronger in the participation within the public sector through the different inclusive organization of fairs and through participation of local products and actually acquaintance with those local products. So another thing would be the lack of support that the local government represents in this segment of the population. We haven't seen an urgent intervention from the authorities through the implementation of public policy that would be recognizing and supporting the social and solidarity economy as a mechanism for the generation of income. And so the economy can be dynamic within the region and within our province. There are other factors that also play a role, such as the difficulty in the access of services like connectivity, and also education, including in these types of sectors during the past few years and the months in which we have seen some problems arise at a social level, and parting from the pandemic, we have seen different businesses here in Salcedo region. And I think that the entrepreneurship were those economies that we saw the most. However, those dreams were shattered due to lack of support, lack of knowledge, and lack of continuing education that without a doubt could strengthen the economy, the social and solidarity economy. So that's why, as an uncentralized autonomous government, a local authority, we're promoting an ordinance project, public policy that can back up, can actually educate and train this segment of society, this proletariat, the authorities as well, in services that would engage in public hirings for our entrepreneurs. So this small and medium enterprises won't be stagnant and they can continue to grow. So they can contribute to the activation, the economic activity of our region, our province, and our country through local manufacturing, quality products that are also important for the growth of the economy. And lastly, as I stated, we manifest the main objective, which is anything that is generated by the municipalities, by the decentralized government organizations, stays here in Salcedo region. So we can go ahead and prevail in the exchange of cultures, in the exchange of products, while getting to really know and let everybody know about our products and our activities. So it's important to change the alliances that we have. Of course, we have those partnerships, we have those alliances, but we need the authorities to urgently intervene. We need to create that with that chain, so the dream that they have to grow as entrepreneurs is no longer shattered. So we're going to show the solution that we have here in Salcedo that we're implemented, and that's something that we are on the path of building. And we are excited and fascinated to find the problems and to tackle the deficiencies and be able to come up with the solutions that we can promote. So this small segment, as I have stated so far, can strengthen itself, it can grow in the economy, and the popular and the social and solidarity economy can see itself strengthening. Thank you so much, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Muchísimas gracias a Mariana y a
Thank you,
Julián.
Mariana. Thank you,
Ahora
Julián.
doy la palabra a,
I'll be giving the
Caterina
floor to
Eliana
Catherine Eliana
Fernández.
Fernandez Paz. Catherine,
Tienes la palabra.
you do have the floor. Thank you. Good morning. Well, I don't know what would be your time zone, but here in Bolivia, in our Pollinized network, we are promoting ecological travel. And that's something we have heard through the course of the week in this event. Is something that many organizations have moved forward in different countries in different ways. The Pollinizing Network has such a name because we want to make the analogy, rural communities that do visit are flowers, and our visitors, each tourist is a pollinizing agent that's going to bring the train of thought to a reproduction destination, which is a train of thought that we have, something that we have discussed, which is the actual nutrition, that we want nutrition to be dignified. We don't know what we're eating. We're facing a nutritional crisis worldwide. We need to be informed. We have a food crisis, so individuals don't want to be informed, and the task it's more and more difficult. However, each one of the farming families that are part of the pollinizing family, they engage this because they're out of vacation. They engage in these activities because they have seeked our buyers, and they have searched for food sources and for food producers. So you can know which are the agricultural activities of each family on a daily basis, habitual. So that way we can strengthen the relationship, so we can come up with joint strategies. Sometimes it's very complicated. Some people get involved quite at a speedy rate, some don't. So each one of those trips, we try to organize one trip per week. There are more than 22 communities at La Paz department, which is actually the government headquarters, and it is an area that gives an ecological summary of everything that we have in the country. We have lake communities, we have plains communities, we have biodiverse subtropical jungle areas. We also have tropical areas. We also have snowy mountains. We have dry lands. So each family has a different production tradition according to their ecosystem. We can see vegetables, fruits, we can also see livestock management. We in many countries they don't have llamas or alpacas, but in the case we also have fish in the case of Lake Titicaca. So the food production and medicinal production and flower production is rather diverse. And also we have fertilizers. We have been producing organic fertilizers and all the supplies in order to avoid those synthetic fertilizer. It is a task that we wouldn't call ecological, but we do have ecological goals or environmentally friendly goals, but it's difficult to find 100% environmental friendly product because the pollution is pretty generalized. If a company engages in older practices, however, the product might be polluted by the neighbors. They could be using maybe synthetic um, fertilizers through water, through air, which is, but you know what, as we know, that's a cycle that comes and goes. Now it's very complicated to tell our buyer this onion or this sweet potato is 100% environmentally friendly, and that we would be deceiving. That would be so. So we do have serious intentions of producing clean foods. Evidently, it's a commitment, and also our buyers as of the pandemic, want to find healthier items. We are appealing to the actual nature and history of each food product, starting from the seeds. However, finding 100% environmentally friendly produce is a challenge. So, but we are on the right path to find a product that would be the product that it's adequately grown and won't be damaging to the body. So our network, what it does is that families plan out the trips. No one designs anything on their behalf. We learn tourism hands-on. So it's an open network where all rural communities can join, but we do have different procedures so communities and families can join. And the ones that find the vocation behind it stay. It's not simple, it requires training. There's capacity building involved that we look for, and it's a horizontal exchange between the farmlands and the city. It is a meeting point in which the beauty of the landscape that we would have loved to present to you in the event, that we are confident many countries have the same scenarios, takes us out of the regular situation and allows people to understand and feel the ecosystem. while finding the origin of foods, so and how they get to your plate, so that that moment we have the right moment to find commitment from people, engagement from people. Because if we speak in a forum, we just have a, it's just discourse and it's just words. But if we don't take on responsibility, we never will. And we do have those responsibilities from the moment we are born. So what we want with environmentally friendly tourism or agrotourism, we want to promote questions and we want to achieve goals. And someone, but you might find someone you have many things in common, that more things in common than you think. So that way we were able to get more than 800 followers for our social media. We don't have an office. We're permanently on the move. Our equipment is on the farmland, and the city, a couple of us are promoting the project. It's a community that's going to be transferring knowledge to those communities that are incorporating themselves to the system. So that way we can have more and more engaged families within the group. So from one region to the other is very complicated. So the technology assists, but we try to have encounters in person so we can plan out all work while we can reinforce our principles, our work principles. And this vest that I am wearing, it's something that identifies, visually identifies. So when you see our banners on social media and trips are promoted, so people can actually register and they can know the network, pollinize the network, and those that belong to the network can feel and they can reaffirm their belonging to the network. And remembering always the type of food that we want to grow, the type of food which is the production from the earth and the entire chain. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Very interesting what you're presenting. Now I give the floor to Bernard Loyiga. Bernard, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Good evening from Kampala, Uganda. It is 7 p.m. It's night time. It's a pleasure being on this a very important session. So I'm privileged and honored to be a part of the speakers, share experience with initiatives that we have in Uganda. First and foremost, I would like me to appreciate GCEF for the opportunity of giving me to explain our initiative, and also for the knowledge that I've acquired through this GCEF 2021 Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bernard Loyiga from Uganda, and I'm the co-founder of Social Seneca, which is network for social and solidarity economy, social and solidarity network economy for Eastern East Africa, for Eastern Central Africa. So I know it is a question maybe in each and every person's mind why we focus on two areas, two regions of Africa, that is East and Central Africa. First and foremost, when you try to look at the records or the data that is available, these two regions are, they comprise almost half of the population of Africa as a continent. When you combine the population of East Africa and then Central Africa combined, which is about 640 million people out of the 1.3 billion Africans. So I think it is the most strategic region in the world. It comprises around 8% of the total, the global population. So it's a sensitive, or it is an important region. So the questions that many people, even ourselves, that come to our mind is that this region, the East and Central Africa, it's the most porous. When you look at the countries around the world, when you try to do the ranking, the poorest countries in the world, this region has about 5, the most poorest countries around the world. Yet, fortunately, this region has resources. Look at East Africa, you look at Central Africa, most of the resources that we have, I mean, as a continent, they come from these 2 regions, you know. So it is surprising, and I mean, how do you explain the fact that a region that has people, I mean, natural resources, a region that has very many people, the region that has minerals, the region that has natural gas, the region that has forests and wildlife, you know, this region has, I mean, it has more than 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of the world's natural gas, and 12% of the world's oil reserves. This region has the vast population, you know. The question that comes to our mind, why is the region, I mean, why is it the most poorest still of all the regions? So it is a central question, and I think that is when we bring in the element of SSE. Our thinking is, because we've tested it, GSF has given us capacity, none or the other, not once, not twice, but we have seen initiatives that GSF has carried out in our country and which have been productive and which has changed people's lives. So we think that the challenge that we have, for example, poverty, you know, out of the 10 most poor countries in East and Central Africa, I mean, we have 36% of the most poorest countries are in this region. This region is the one affected by wars and instability. Corruption is endemic in this region. So the only intervention, because many interventions have been done, maybe with the public sector, but I think the situation is not improving any good. So we think that through social and solidarity economy initiatives, we can solve most of the problems we have as a continent, especially in this particular region. Of course, we had started this initiative, and we formalized its operations in early 2021. Unfortunately, when at the time when we were supposed to roll out our activities, COVID became worse, and we had a challenge of implementation. We had rolled out a work plan. We wanted to network with the SSEs in the various countries. Of course, in Uganda, currently we have 5 organizations that are part of this network. So we're looking forward. Some of the initiatives that we want to do, we want to reach out to the SSE networks and the local governments in the various regions of this, in the various countries in this region. For example, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Southern Sudan, Somalia, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Congo. We want to reach out to the SSEs, and we want to share experience and make partnerships with these SSEs and local governments, because we cannot do it alone. I mean, as an entity, I think we cannot work it alone. Our belief is that, when we unite, when we work together, then we can achieve more. So I think if we're to achieve the SD targets, we need to have the SSE ecosystem work and must be high on the agenda. We shouldn't look at what is happening right now is people, the capital, the financial profits, the companies make a lot of money, people look at the profits. We need now to look at the SE agenda whereby we promote an all-inclusive kind of system, and that can only be championed by SSE. So with Seneca, we intend to roll out our programs, and we intend to connect with SSEs in the various regions. And I know we shall achieve the targets. And we are seeing the situation of COVID going down, and hopefully we'll be in a position to implement most of our activities. Now, finally, of course, we can't work out alone as SSEs. We also need to work in partnership with the local, the governments and the local government, and of course, of the private sector. So we now looking at how we can harmonize our partnership in terms of knowing how we can implement most of our initiatives, working together with the various entities and various stakeholders. So hopefully when the COVID maybe situation gets to normal, we will be on board to implement most of our initiatives. Otherwise, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to getting more knowledge. The participants that are here, most of you experienced in the field of SSE. So we welcome any kind of ideas and support and kind of knowledge which you can give unto us to make sure we promote the SSE agenda in the East and Central African region. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Thank you, Bernard, for your presentation. Voy a hablar español. Me parece muy rápidamente unos
Very
comentarios.
briefly, a few remarks.
Vuestras presentaciones, sobre todo con
on
respecto
your presentations, especially with regards
a los resultados, ¿no? que han
to the results achieved
Yo creo que,
thanks to these
Blanca,
partnerships. I believe that Blanca
enfatizó, un tema importante
underscored a very important topic
en, la región del País Vasco,
that
que
she has achieved in the Basque
es una
region.
tradición
It's a region with a long history of
Sin embargo, esta alianza ha logrado
SSC. However, this
hacer que en el
alliance,
gobierno local de Bilbao, de la ciudad de Bilbao, haya priorizado
local government has prioritized, thanks to these alliances, social and solidarity economy in a cross-cutting manner, which I believe is the proper way with regards to SSC, because it is cross-cutting with regards to social and economic aspects, not only in one single territory. Mariana and Julian have spoken about results. In other words, the increase in economic transactions. Julian spoke about that, and Mariana spoke about the need to make economic activities grow in these territories. In other words, what takes place in those territories, not to leave the country. You know, the exploitation methods
a otros territorios,
in a territory,
hay
and
que pararla,
this
y que la
wealth
economía
leaves the
social
country. Well, this has to be stopped. Social economy has these characteristics. In other words, to allow to keep those activities inside the country. And this is what I do understand in Bernard, and that it's one of the poorest regions, but at the same time, one of the wealthiest in Central Africa. Central Africa has much wealth and much natural resources, but however, the conditions are not there for this to have some sort of effect at a local level. And Catherine spoke about two topics which are important: the coming together of cities and the rural areas, which is something crucial, and the investments. I don't know if investment is the word, in obtaining the commitment of people through examples, through actions. I believe that there's still much to be done, but yes, of course, indicators have increased. Very well. Having said this, I wish to remind our attendees to convey their opinions, your remarks, your answers made in the indicated spaces, and we now will go on to the second round. The second round, I do have another question addressed to all of you. What should be the actions or strategies of people, governments, groups, societies, countries, so as to be able to achieve a better and a more inclusive world. In other words, which are the actions that need to be promoted from a local level? I know it's not an easy question. You have 5 minutes, each one of you.
Julián y Mariana comparten
Julian
tiempo.
and Mariana share those 5 minutes, and I now give the floor following the sequence to Blanca. Blanca, you have the floor. Oh, thank you, Roberto, once again. I will let you know how we are carrying out specific actions with regards to these alliances. It's important to underscore that the Econopolo as a project started very recently. As a matter of fact, it began at the start of this year. Hence, we are still at the start of this path, and there's still much to be done. However, yes, we have defined 3 working lines, which I will be addressing. The first work perspective is the entrepreneurial one. In other words, what we're trying to do is to develop, on the one hand, entrepreneurial activities, and on the other hand, we are developing inhabited organizations which keep in mind the feminist perspective. The second line in the Econopolo is trade. What we're trying to do is to promote an alternative market which will convey visibility to these initiatives, economic and solidarity initiatives, and which will create awareness in the different actors with regards to the SSCs and the initiatives that already exist and that can be utilized. And also, along these lines, we wish to promote cooperation between the entities which are already part of the network and of the ecosystem of the SSC, and also to facilitate funding paths which will be different alternatives. And the last work line within our organization is a more specific line which has to do with responsible public procurement. What we wish to do is to work together with City Council to develop policies which will favor the social and solidarity the economy, and also to train for them to include social as well as environmental clauses when hiring. These are the 3 lines. Therefore, for this year, which are the specific actions will be translated? Now, with regards to enterprise, as a matter of fact, in November, we will be launching a training program for the startup of social and solidarity projects in Bilbao. This program will be directed or addressed to entrepreneurs which have a project along these lines, and on the other hand, associations that wish to professionalize their activities, and lastly, to marketing companies that wish to change towards social and solidarity economies. So, of course, this training has 2 aspects. One aspect is to train from a theoretical and practical standpoint, which holds networking sessions so that women entrepreneurs be connected and connect with the ecosystem. And on the other hand, there is 18-hour accompaniment for each project. Each mentor will create the proper itinerary. Now, with regards to trade, we will be carrying out guided visits to different entities and projects, like, for example, renewable energy projects, ethical banking systems, co-op, supermarkets, secondhand clothing, which we have already included within the network, and they will be addressed to the different sectors of citizenry. And what we're looking for is to create awareness with regards to social and solidarity economy, and to promote for them to, of course, buy in these different entities. And lastly, with regards to responsible public procurement, next week we shall be launching 2 trainings which will be addressed to technical staff of the City Council, which is linked to public procurement. And what we shall be conveying is an introduction to what is responsible public procurement. We're going to give them examples of how it can be applied, and especially we're going to try and solve specific doubts on how this can be applied in their daily work. And once these workshops have ended, what we're going to do is to launch a web site with a checklist with the different types of existing contracts and examples of social environmental clauses which can be applied. And also the City Council, strengthening its municipal commitment, it has included for the social clauses and reserved contracts for the SCs has a budget of 700,000 euros. And this is what we're thinking to do for this year. Thank you. Thank you, Blanca. We now give the floor to Julián and Mariana. You have the floor. Well, thank you once again. I'm going to focus on the first part of the question by Roberto. Okay, with regards to public policies and the governments, what we wish to do is how are we going to support, or how the governments are supporting these actions? But I will also address 4 examples on how public procurement has taken place in the province of Chimborazo. We hired a street or a highway system. We're talking of more or less 45 families that were hired. A contract took place with a catering with rural families to provide food to local daycare centers, and also $18,000 for the purchasing of toys from local craftsmen, and also a contract with the cleaning association for the maintenance and cleaning of a market with a value of $230,000, which would take place for a year. The direct beneficiaries are the members of the organizations, where wealth is redistributed amongst the members and gains are not concentrated in the hands of few. Firstly, we believe it's important to listen to the people that belong to these organizations, to understand their struggles, requests, their interests, to promote their production, commercialization, and which are the difficulties they face. We consulted a representative of a food association, which were the difficulties that she found. And she said, we had the issue that they only hired one single person. We are popular in solidarity economies, we're small, but we definitely give out loans. The struggle is harsh, but we have been able to participate, not only one single person, but of course to distribute the contracts and gains amongst different people. And in Ecuador, the term that we use is the term of a popular and solidarity economy. Secondly, we believe that the government needs issues that will promote organization and participation of actors, and of course to simplify red tape. We consulted one of these public officials to understand what he thinks of these issues with regards to the participation of public and private sectors. He said there's much informal work and this is a big issue. I believe that we should implement programs that would strengthen the links between the popular and solidarity economy because they're entrepreneurs. It's a safer space and reducing, of course, this informal gap. Thirdly, we believe that it's necessary to take into account the role of women and their participation in the popular and solidarity economies. What is the economic contribution? Because the majority of these organizations have a high participation of women. This, of course, in Ecuador, it might be also in different locations. And these women thereafter, after their daily work, they work on care issues which is invisible, and they do not obtain a salary. So if we understand these circumstances, we can establish strategies which include inclusiveness and the distribution of wealth. And Mariana will be addressing at a local level which actions are taking place. Well, thank you, Julián. Yes, we have definitely made a very clear question. Which are the actions that need to be promoted from a local level? Let me start by saying that actions definitely need to be from a local level, Of course,
la
facing or
disolución o en la
understanding the
liquidación de ciertas
lack of
organizaciones
efficiencies,
y
which
también
of course have caused a wrong distribution and wrong legal issues. So we have to clearly understand which are the local problems. Here at Salcedo, our starting point has been to understand why certain associations disappeared, why they're not there, and why those that are active do not grow, why do not partner up with other processes, as Julian was saying. You know, this modality of inclusive fairs, well, as authorities, on my behalf, and Gladys, we are advisors at Salcedo, we have proposed to create an ordinance project, a bill here, that's what it's called, with the name of the following: strengthening a popular and solidarity economy, including the inclusive fairs through the public procurement service. And our ordinance is
partimos al
born
inicio
thanks to
sobre
the
las
question we
alianzas.
shared at the
Las
start with
alianzas
regards to
estratégicas
alliances. Strategic alliances have a specific objective, is to increase results. Our first stage begins with the strategic alliance with academia, with schools, on higher education, where through students and teachers, we try to understand which are the needs in each one of the territories, taking into account the characteristics and specifications in common. The second step is to tabulate results, where we will be able to understand which are the difficulties faced. For example, demographic numbers, basic services, access to health, education are some of the topics that we clearly need to understand based on statistics. The organization is the main point so that
puedan
certain
sujetarse
enterprises
y
might
puedan perdurar
continue
durante el paso
and
del
might
tiempo.
last
Nuestra
through time. The third stage is to have a list of associations, and with these people and with these groups to be able to become pioneers so as to state ideas and requirements for them and for us as authorities, and to have full knowledge of what our entrepreneurs need and to comply with our alliances as well. And finally, in this manner, we will be able to have a law where, first of all, we will be able to state social economy as a law, as a priority, where the autonomous decentralized government will have to destine a specific amount of money to fund spaces which will promote these inclusive fairs and increase the number of processes throughout the year in services like, for example, food, furniture cleaning, spare parts, transportation, amongst others.
El último paso es
And lastly, to execute this bill. Here at Salcedo, we're doing it in 2 steps, and then it can take place to implement local fairs and to carry out 3 public processes where certain associations and individuals fully trained might participate. We wish to do this in this first period and to analyze the results thereafter to carry out future modifications. The main objective is this type of economy within the processes within Salcedo. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Julian and Mariana. And now we give the floor to Catherine. You have the floor. Well, thank you. To answer the question, I believe that there are certain work lines that are part of the principles. One of these is integral management of biodiversity, because to be able to guarantee food, we need not only to set aside the seeds. This job is definitely complex. We have to understand what the ecosystem is all about, how we are interconnected, the functioning of biodiversity, and to understand as human species, where do we locate ourselves? We're merely another life species amongst many, and that interdependence that we have amongst life beings. And if we understand that, we can take upon ourselves responsibility to protect biodiversity, to make sure we have water and oxygen for the present. Let's not talk about future generations. The present is at stake. So the protection of biodiversity is a task that implies daily actions from each individual. It doesn't matter if you're a producer, consumer, or wherever you find yourself. Another work line is the food patrimony. In other words, to understand where food comes from. Food transformation is also important, and also the way in which food is transformed at present on our streets and even out in the fields. You know, they tend to copy what the cities do based on a supposedly modernization. And also in the stores and out in the fields, we can find much food, which at present it's called junk food. For example, canned food, ultra processed food. So this, of course, will help us. What can we call as food patrimony? What is worthwhile to recover, disseminate, and also to propose as innovations. Lately, in gastronomy, it's become a profession chosen by many youth, and this is good news concerning these new generations. They're entering into other life projects. We have the animal lovers, in other words, people that are proposing from a political level different things. And through food, many youths are proposing interesting things. So we have to pay attention and convey support. They're doing it with their own resources. Local governments organize fairs and shows, but structural support can still not be seen. Training exists, there are schools, but what do they do with all of this? Well, we should not continue along these lines of training, conveying a diploma and just leaving them alone. No, all of this has to be part in a mindset change. So if we're alone and the governments support little between consumers and transformers, we have to create partnerships and strengthen these commitments. Therefore, when we decide what are you going to eat every day, you have to think in this manner and to choose preferably and to exercise your power as a consumer concerning these proposals from the new chefs, because you will find answers there. Not always will you find answers in bylaws and legislation. That simply remains on paper. If we do not do this in a practical perspective, it will not become a reality. So we have to act, or without the governments. And in that manner, we will be able to generate policies which thereafter might become public policies and to demand their implementation. And daily actions which are under the control of any human being. In other words, that's what you will be eating. You can control the dish before when you wake up. That can be controlled by you. And there are no pretexts to say, I don't have much money. I only have this at my reach, because precisely one of the things that we have been able to prove in agrotourism is that primary food is of a low cost. Therefore, if we properly analyze things, sometimes information is biased and manipulated, even through ads saying that natural food is more expensive than from the agro industry. If we confirm this information, we will see that we can nourish ourselves with accessible food directly from the agriculture farmers. And this can be found in the majority of countries. Other countries depend on imports or processed foods. But generally speaking, in those countries, they can find primary food which is not expensive, because publicity definitely manipulates in many different manners and say that you know, it's not possible to find green food, and only the agro industry can provide it to you and can solve food or hunger issues, and that's a lie. Poverty has always been linked to malnourishment, and we know, for example, that problems concerning obesity, allergies, and cancer are linked to a wrong consumption, not because I'm poor. If I have a lot of money, I eat improperly. When food is delivered, that's the wrong food. Of course, if I can pay food delivery that brings it to my doorstep, I do have money and I can be informed, therefore, with regards to the quality of food. And with all of this, of course, to promote circular economy. If I buy near the farmers with the less amount of intermediaries to the farmers or those that transform food, well, the money that I will be spending on this food will return back into my pocket quicker. Because in countries like Bolivia, we have issues concerning contraband of food, and they're produced in our country, but we convey priority to this food, and the contraband defines the price in our country. And this is a phenomenon that we have seen in other countries. Similar things occur in their own countries, in Mexico as well. Hence, because you're not informed, our money leaves the country because we're purchasing from contraband. So if we are informed properly, we have a proper supply chain and we favor the local economy. That money will be spent here and it'll come back into my pocket quicker. I have greater possibilities of having a dignified food and of a local commitment with food. Thank you.
Bueno, gracias, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Catherine. And we now give the floor to Bernard.
Thank you very much, moderator and the fellow speakers and all the participants here. Now, of course, as I explained, our major focus, of course, each and every region has their own problems and the challenges. Now, for the region in question currently, the question of, the region of Eastern and Central Africa, of course, as I highlighted in my previous presentation, we have specific challenges. For example, poverty, disease, conflict, corruption, and poor governance. These are taking back the region. You'll find that poverty, poverty contributes to instability and conflict. You'll see that because of poor governance, we are having corruption, which is endemic. So in that regard, the relevance of SSE now comes into play. Now, the actions that we need to, in my view, some of the strategies that we need to work out or think about. One, I think we need to think of aggressively engaging in international collaborations especially with the SSE global actors, for example, like GCEF and then other SSE actors. Realizing that the world now, in fact, with this endemic of COVID-19, we have realized that the world is one. Right now, we are in Mexico, I'm in Uganda, but I'm in Mexico, we are trying to, we are communicating, people are around the world. So the world is a global village. So we need to exchange knowledge and their skills on SSE development because one of the problems we are having or the challenges we are having is people understanding, especially the governments, understanding the role of SSE in the development of the country. So unless the stakeholders like the government appreciates the role of SSE, we are going to have a chance. So when we have these kind of engagements, like right now we are having international engagement, collaboration, and sharing experiences, I think one way or the other, we are building capacity. and to push the SSC agenda. So one weak SSC actors, like now we have Seneca here starting in the Eastern Central African region. When we collaborate with GCEF, for example, and other international global SSC actors, of course, we are getting skills, we are given capacity, we are given a platform to share our views and ideas on how to improve the welfare of the people, go through the SSC agenda. So that is the first point I want to make. Secondly, I think we need to work on vigorously to work on the advocacy and legislation, because what's happening currently is that the SSC agenda lacks in some countries, of course, it lacks the legal framework. I mean, and of course, it becomes a challenge, because you'll find that when the governments do not recognize the SSC agenda, it will be very, very difficult to implement even the SSC projects. I mean, even when they implement, for example, when it goes to budgeting and planning processes, right now we are for example, in my country, we are having the budget and planning for the next year next financial year. So if we do not have we don't work on the legislative and the regulations that govern SSEs, then we have no framework within which to operate as SSE. So I think it's very important. We play the advocacy role. We petition our parliaments, the respective parliaments and the government agencies to put SSE on the agenda, the development agenda of the country. So we need really a concerted effort in that regard. And then also, we need also capacity building and trainings. I mean, we need people, especially the public servants, to be trained in social economy. I mean, people to appreciate, to understand the role SSE plays in day-to-day affairs of the people's lives. So if you don't build capacity and we don't train, it will be really very hard to move or to push the SSE agenda. I can give an example in my country. Of course, the support we've received from GCEF, it has moved us to another level. I mean, I think in the East African region, the SSE movement or agenda is well understood, or in the Uganda's context and even the other part of East Africa. Because we are trying slowly to involve the government, the stakeholders. We've had trainings. The public servants have been trained. So I think it's also relevant to engage. I mean, to vigorously continue with capacity building and trainings in social and solidarity economy. I mean, people to understand what SSE is and what SSE can, the changes that SSE can cause to economic development. Then lastly, it's very important, but I think it is a food for thought to all of us, especially people who are the speakers here. We need to see, I mean, how do we tame or how do we coexist with the private sector? I mean, we shouldn't be seen as competing. I mean, the private sector and the public sector and then the social economy, we shouldn't be seen to be competing, but we should maybe complement each other. I mean, the private sector must appreciate that they need to work closely, coexist with the social economy actors for development of the country. I mean, for example, if we want to achieve the SDGs, say for example, fighting hunger, we should realize that one entity cannot work it out. I mean, we need to work together. We need a private sector, we need a public. We also need the SSE agenda. So I think what is currently happening, for example, in my country is the SSEs, I mean, they're conflicting. I mean, they're contradicting with the private sector. I mean, they are competing, they're in a competition, I think, which is not important. So I think food for thought to each one of us. How do we see the private sector, or how does the private sector look at SSE as a partner in the development of in pursuing the interests of the respective entities? So I think that is maybe something that we can have, each one of us here can think about, the private sector to coexist with the SSE agenda, with the sector. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Voy a rápidamente
I shall quickly
sobre esta última ronda. Me
connect,
parece que van perspectivas diferentes
publish
alrededor
about something about the last round.
paradigma
So our
del
different perspectives around the paradigm of production and consumption. I believe that the first three, Blanca, Julian, and Mariana, have emphasized their ideas over a topic of utmost importance regarding public purchases and the need of actually imposing clauses so the investment funds, public investment funds would be conditioned towards obtaining social targets which are aligned to social and solidarity economy. That it's a topic that it's going to be more and more relevant in my opinion. And also, Catherine sees it from the consumer standpoint, which is an important item to consider. Meaning the consumer needs to be aware of many things that happens. Advertising can be manipulated and can be fake, and that ultimately affects individuals because people end up buying products that are totally contrary to what they advertise to be. And Bernard has spoken about awareness, building awareness. And he's also spoke about capacity building, which is of utmost importance in the process of elevating the level of awareness, as well as acknowledgement of the legal framework. Now, given the fact that we are very short on time, according to my instructions, I would have to provide 1 minute to each one of you. Please do adhere to your time constraints. There are two questions. I have more, but I am going to use only two of them. And during that minute to conclude, perhaps you want to make reference to these two questions. In all actuality, it's only one question that I do pose to everyone. And there's another one that I'm asking out of Catherine. The general question is what are the strategies that should be followed to be able to implement social and solidarity economy as a standard in order to face the effects of the pandemic? And the question for Catherine, what's the diagnosis that agricultural tourism presents as it relates to regional authorities, municipal authorities, government authorities? We begin with Blanca, 1 minute. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to my co-panelists for your interventions. Truly interesting. Before I conclude, I'd like to mention what Catherine mentioned and pick up on that idea. Informed consumers, it's not more expensive to consume from social and solidarity economy. At Euskadi, we did carry out an investigation last year. It's not more expensive. It's the lack of information. It's the lack of accessibility. So we have to focus on building awareness in the population and facilitating initiatives and access to those initiatives. Thank you. Responding to your question, I'd like to read certain points that we prepared as of this Congress. The COVID-19 pandemic has set forth certain challenges to local governments. So according with the agents from ESS, we can promote new scenarios for the building of an economy that would be more inclusive and sustainable. We have identified three great desired scenarios that could contribute to build local communities that were more resilient, that are going to face eco-social challenges. A local community that would be inclusive and caretaking, that would include individuals and their well-being as a priority for the local human development programs. On the other side, a community that would be the eco-social transition economy, developing a strategy that's going to allow for the building of local sustainable development. And lastly, an economy that it's for an equitable, sustainable economy, promoting a change in the production system, placing life in the center of all of its activities, while enhancing reproductive and care work. Thank you very much. Thank you, Blanca. And I give the floor to Julian and Mariana. You have 1 minute, each one of you. Well, thank you very much. Just to answer, it's important to state that we have taken the position of the government. I believe that the proposals from the other panelists like Catherine Bernal and Blanca are very important because that's the actual action when we get in the territory. And the post-pandemic topic, what we have come to realize is that there's more activity in public purchasing. So that brings us to understand that the organization has assisted us in supporting and on bearing or and sustaining the effects of COVID-19. So we hope that this brief presentation supports a debate to find out what's the role of the state and how we can promote social and solidarity economy. We conducted this work with several individuals with the municipalities, including with Maria Constantinorio, Sebastián Castellano from the University Caris Mesidas and the municipality of Salcedo. We want to show this why we can collaborate among different sectors while looking for alternatives that can allow for the stakeholders so they can resist and they can generate local economy. Thank you. Well, thank you for the questions. I'm sorry, the first question, I didn't understand it. But regarding the governments, we're permanently looking to organize actions along with local governments, rural municipalities. We have done well at La Paz municipality, which is one of the largest municipalities in the country, in certain management for the promotion of the foods. And we are promoting the market campus, what has a farmers market spirit. And it has been difficult. We have changed governments. We have seen new administrations. We held elections. And in the middle of the year, last year, there is bureaucracy. There's a type of administration that democratic countries have designed in our country, and we have to respect it. Unfortunately, corruption is also a component of all of this. This is not foreign to anybody, but we don't abandon the idea to organize ourselves with them. We want to be able to occupy a public space with our products that always for a small producer is very difficult, it's very complicated. They give us limited hours, and all countries are aware of this. A producer that sits with oranges on the street, we see the guards asking him to leave. So it's very exhausting. So that type of process will be something that would have to speed up. But however, we have other actions that we engage in, which is independent from the governments. Why? Because we have that freedom and we have to use that freedom responsibly. No one is going to throw you in jail for creating alliances, for engaging in entrepreneurship that involve collective action, that not necessarily have a legal component. In Bolivia, we have a registry that legalizes products or authorizes products so they can be sold in markets, whether those products would be informal or informal. They give you that authorization, but if they give that authorization to Nestle, Coca-Cola, Burger King, and McDonald's, why do we have to comply in order to be in the same market? This is not coherent. So here we need to review and we need to update the regulations that makes you follow certain conditions to obtain that authorization. Collective mobilization for producing and offering alternative foods, and they get more and more authorization and legitimacy. We see that in every country. So we can reach legitimacy and we're going to be able to get authorized because the consumer is going to be pressuring with their purchasing decision over this government decision. So that's in our hands. Is it expensive? Yes, it's expensive. Yes, the producer is persecuted for not complying. Sorry, Catherine. I have to give the floor to the rest.
Entonces, Mariana,
Mariana,
volvemos a Ecuador,
we'll go back to Ecuador.
Mariana, tienes un minuto, dale.
Perfecto. Bueno,
You have a minute. Well, thank you. Just I want to answer by saying that the effects of the pandemic are not going to be evident in such a short period of time. Their impact is going to be seen in 2 or 3 years down the road, and to see how it has affected the local and the domestic and the international economy. To conclude, we are the local governments, the main tool in order to prevail in social and solidarity economy. We need to understand how we increment or increase policies at a national level, but our challenge is to really bring that experience and transfer it to local policies through the creation of local instruments such as ordinance that we utilize to propose this form. Without a doubt, would be a support for this element of the economy through an ordinance and through a law. We'll be able to prioritize public expense and resources, given the opportunity to entrepreneurs to grow as a company, as an enterprise, while allowing them to promote their products and the legal recognition, financing, and why not the international resources that are of utmost importance. Due to the demographics and the lack of access to certain services, there is lack of knowledge, which is evident, which is truly important for the strengthening of social and solidarity economy. So alliances with the academia and continuing education is going to allow us to position ourselves as the main resource generator mechanism through public policy, local public policy. Will be able to contribute and overcome the poverty indexes, specifically in the case of those individuals that live in extreme poverty here in Salcedo. So ultimately, while strengthening economies generated by communities, families, ethnic groups, peoples, and indigenous people that we have here in our region. And why not the inclusion of gender equality, children, women, the elderly, and generic diversities, among others, because we care about nature, and for those that seek exchange of cultures through solidarity and social engagement. That's all we can conclude with, and according to our experience in our canton and in Ecuador. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a Mariana.
Thank you, Mariana.
Le mandé la pregunta a Bernard en el chat en inglés.
Here is the question for Bernarda. I hope Bernarda got it in the chat. It was
the question in English in the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Please.
It's a tricky question, but a very also good question that has, I mean, responding to it is not really easy, but I think if I can make my personal observation or my personal view, I think like I will give an example, like what has happened in my country or in the region of Africa. The survival, I mean, the livelihoods of most of the people has been affected. As you know, most about 80% of economy is informal. I mean, people survive on informal sector-related activities and initiatives. So with COVID-19, the livelihoods of our people has been badly affected, adversely affected. The business have closed down. People have lost their, the businesses. They can't do businesses anymore. The enterprises have really closed. So I think with the SSE agenda, I think what needs to be done is how do we build back what has been destroyed by COVID-19? To begin with, I think we need to do maybe a research, collection of the data. It's very important. And I think SSE here may play a very big role. Coming up with collecting information and data, what damage has been caused by the COVID-19, and then what kind of interventions. How many people have lost their businesses? I think it's very important. So in my view, I think what SSE can, the intervention of SSE is by coming up with initiatives that bring back people, build back people's livelihoods back to normal. I think that is what SSE mainly can do in this regard. Thank you very much.
Muy bien, muy interesante las conclusiones. Me
The
quedo con-
conclusions are very interesting, and I have the last one from Bernard. He did mention something that is a priority, the fact that the crisis has struck everybody, but some more than others. So in the case of workers in the informal economy, such as women workers and the youth workers, I think that social and solidarity economy can be a source of a transition, the turning transition from informal economy to formal economy. And I conclude, we are over our time. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Blanca, to Julian, to Mariana, to Catherine, and to Bernard for the excellent contributions. And greetings, solidary greetings from Geneva. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you.